الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد, dear brothers and sisters, this is lesson number 2 of our commentary on Sullam al-Wuṣūl إلى الضروري من علم الأصول by Shaykh al-Allama Muhammad bin Abdul Rahman Disī rahimahullah. And we said last lecture that this poem is originally a poem from the book that is called Al-Waraqat by Imam Abi al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni rahimahullah. So therefore, the origin of this poem is Al-Waraqat, which means the papers of Imam Abi al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni, the great Imam. So who is Al-Juwayni? And who was this guy, this great scholar that wrote this small introduction to Usul al-Fiqh, the derivatives of jurisprudence? Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni is called Imam al-Haramain. Haramain means Mecca and Medina. Shaykh al-Shafi'iyya, the leader, the senator of the Shafi'is, the great giant of jurisprudence, Islamic jurisprudence. Abu al-Ma'ali Abdul Malik ibn al-Imam Abi Muhammad Abdullah ibn Yusuf al-Juwayni al-Nisaburi al-Shafi'i rahimahullah al-Ash'ari. So he is referred to a village called Juwayn, which is one of the villages of Nishapur, which is a great city northern Iran nowadays. In Arabic they call it Nisabur. It was originally called, and it's till now they call it in Persian, Nishapur. And he was Shafi'i in his school, and he was Ash'ari in his creed. Oh, he's not only Ash'ari or Shafi'i, he's one of the great Imams of Shafi'is and the great Imams of Ash'aris. He was born in 18 Muharram, 419 Hijri, in a city called Juwayn, which is a region that is referred to Nishapur. And Nishapur is one of the great cities of Khurasan. Khurasan is a great land. Part of it now is in Iran, part of it is in Afghanistan. And Imam al-Juwayni is referred to a famous family that is known as a religious and a knowledgeable family. So therefore, he grew in this family, and his father, Imam Abu Muhammad Abdullah ibn Yusuf al-Juwayni, was one of the great scholars in Nishapur, and he was very capable in jurisprudence. He wrote several interesting books in that, and he was actually an ascetic, a pious person, and he passed away in the year 438. His uncle, Abu al-Hasan Ali ibn Yusuf al-Juwayni, was called the senator of Hijaz, the great Imam of Hijaz. He was a very pious sheikh, and he studied fiqh and hadith, and he studied several, but he was more known as a Sufi. So he passed away in Nishapur 463. His grandfather actually was known in literature. So his father was a great faqih, jurisprudence. His uncle was a great Sufi. His grandfather was a literature. So it's a family that was known to have all these types of knowledges and and it's an intellectual religious family. And Imam Ibn Asakir, rahimahullah, when he mentioned him, he said that he grew in a great family, and and he started studying and doing. Let us see his attributes and his morals and manners. Actually, his book, Imam Juwayni wrote a lots of books, and some scholars said that this is so strange. How can this Imam in this age, in this era that he lived in, write all of these books? It's actually a miracle. It's a miracle. He was very, very smart and very polite, with high meanings and morals, and this made him very famous between scholars. So he was very humble. That sometimes the one that sits with him thinks that he's mocking him because he was so humble. Although he was a great imam, he was a director of one of the greatest schools in Baghdad. But even though he was so humble, and his heart was so soft that when he hears something that attracts him, he cries. He can share tears, especially if he hears, for example, a reminder, no matter it's a poem or it's not a poem, that shakes his heart. And he had a good memory. His memory was so strong that he can remember lots of things. And he was very smart and clever. So since he was still young, people started seeing that he's so smart and clever. And he was very patient, so patient in studying, in seeking knowledge. So although he sat down early to start teaching, but that didn't stop him from learning. So he sat down teaching, but he kept on studying and learning. And he was very, very generous. And all this didn't make him focus on fertilizing his money or working on his money and doing business with it. No, he kept on seeking knowledge and focusing on knowledge. How did he study? Imam Juwayni started studying in his home because his father, grandfather, uncle, all of them were scholars. So he started studying commentary of Quran and Hadith and fiqh and jurisprudence and all these types of derivatives of Hadith of jurisprudence and literature in his house by his father. So he studied with his father all these types. He studied his father's books. And when his father passed away, he was less than 20 years old. So he sat down in his father's chair where he used to give lectures. So he started giving the lectures. He heard hadith since he was still a child from several shuyukh, and he took from them lots of knowledge. He sought knowledge from them. And he used to connect night with morning in studying. So he used to go so early to a sheikh called Abu Abdullah al-Khabbazi, reciting Quran and learning from it. And then he goes and starts studying all types of knowledge, Usul al-Fiqh, Hadith by Abu al-Qasim al-Isfarayini. And from there he goes to other lectures. And so he met lots of scholars, actually. He met a lot of scholars. And when a sheikh called Abu al-Hasan Ali ibn Faddal al-Mujashi'i, when he came to Nishapur, Imam al-Haramain went to study grammar with him. although he was 50 years old. That didn't prevent him from studying and seeking knowledge. So actually, this is what a summary of what he studied and how he studied. Al-Juwayni rahimahullah was Ash'ari, as his ancestors. And he was Ash'ari in his creed and Shafi'i in his fiqh. But he wasn't an imitator in Ash'ari creed. No, he was a great scholar that searched and went seeking knowledge and reading lots of books, even books of theologians and philosophers and stuff like that. And he had his own opinions in the Ash'ari creed. So he agreed in some chapters. Other chapters he disagreed with them. And he wrote his own books that are interesting books, and that later on his books were a pillar of Ash'ari teachings. And the Ash'ari creed later on started stabling on the origins of what he wrote. As-Subki, when he mentioned him, and As-Subki he wrote his great biography of the Shafi'is, he said about him, he said, in jurisprudence, he's Shafi'i. In literature, he's Asma'i. In giving beautiful reminders, he's Hasan al-Basri. He's an imam in all branches of knowledge. So actually he Al-Imam al-Juwayni wrote lots of interesting books, and most of his books are all of his books are interesting in importance. And he wrote in all types of branches of knowledge. And let us see his main books. So in Usul al-Fiqh, you have to know that in Usul al-Fiqh, Imam al-Juwayni is one of the pillars of Usul al-Fiqh. And when Al-Fakhr al-Razi wanted to write a book that compiles all of the big books of Usul al-Fiqh, he took 4 main books. These 4 main books, 2 are Ash'ari, 2 are Mu'tazili. The Ash'aris are Al-Burhan lil-Juwayni, Al-Mustasfa lil-Ghazali, who's his student of Al-Juwayni, العمد للقاضي عبد الجبار المعتزلي, المعتمد لأبي الحسين البصري المعتزلي. He merged them in a book called المحصول في الأصول. What are the main books that Al-Juwayni wrote in Al-Usul? He wrote Al-Talkhis, it's published. Al-Burhan, it's published. Al-Ghunya, Al-Tuhfa, Al-Waraqat, which is the origin of the poem that we're studying. He wrote books in the Shafi'i jurisprudence, which are great books. Not only small books, no, great books. So he wrote a book called Nihayatul Matlab fi Dirayat al-Madhab. It's nearly, I saw it, so big. It's a huge book. ومختصر التقريب ومختصر النهاية والرسالة النظامية في الأركان الإسلامية. And he wrote books in how to argue and discuss knowledge and stuff like that. And he has a book called, a very beautiful book called Al-Ikhtilaf. Ikhtilaf Fuqaha or something like that. Which he mentions there the differences between the Shafis and the Hanafis. He wrote an interesting book, very famous book in Islamic politics. It's called Ghiyathul Umam fi Iltiyath al-Dhulam, or they call it Al-Ghiyathi. And in theology, he wrote lots of interesting books that are pillars of the Ash'ari creed. So he wrote Al-Shamil fi Usul al-Din, Al-Irshad, Lum'a al-Adilla, Al-Aqidatul Nizamiyya, which was the last book that he wrote, Shifa'ul Alil, which he mentions what happened in the books, in the people in the scriptures, old scriptures, how the corruption that happened there, and he wrote a lot of things. Actually, he wrote a tafsir of the Quran, but we didn't see this tafsir. Maybe it got lost or something like that. Don't forget that there were a lot of disasters in Persia, Khurasan, Iraq, that led to lose a lots of books because don't forget that the Mongolians came and attacked all these lands and killed a lot of people and destroyed. Don't forget that Baghdad, when they entered Baghdad, they killed nearly 1 million people, and they put the books in the river until the river was blue with the ink. You know the ink? It made the water blue from the books that they threw in the. This great Imam had a lot of students, and when we speak about him, we have to know that he was a professor in the great school called Al-Nizamiyya. The Madaris Al-Nizamiyya, or the Nizami schools, were schools created by Nizam al-Mulk, who was the prime minister of the Seljuki dynasty. The Seljuki dynasty. He was a very good guy. He was a knowledgeable guy, and he created these schools to spread knowledge. One in Baghdad, one in Nishapur, one in there. So he put to study in it great scholars, professors, great scholars like Al-Imam al-Juwayni, Al-Imam Shirazi, Al-Imam al-Ghazali, and all these guys. So it's said that the great students of Al-Juwayni were nearly 400 students. Imagine 400. Amongst them we have Imam al-Ghazali, Hujjatul Islam, Ilkiya al-Harrasi. Ilkiya it's a title. Like wal-Khawafi, wal-Bakharzi, wa Abdul Ghafir al-Farisi, and Abu Nasr ibn Abdul Karim al-Qushayri, and all these guys who are great scholars. Abdul Karim al-Damighani, Abdul Jabbar ibn Muhammad Abi Salih al-Mu'adhin, Abu Abdullah al-Furawi. Actually, all these guys are great imams, and a lot other of these. But I think the greatest imam, the greatest students the greatest student of him is Imam al-Ghazali, who was his sister or his successor, if I can say. He was his successor. Imam al-Ghazali, Imam al-Juwayni, rahimahullah, passed away after studying a lot, and he got sick by some disease, and he passed away in a city called, or in a village called Bashtin Khan. So he passed away there in 25th Rabi' the second, 478, and he passed away 59 years old. This great Imam passed away, he was 59 years old. Imagine. And subhanallah al-azim. Why did they call him Imam al-Haramain? Because he went to Mecca and Medina for some time, and he stayed there for some time where there was a disaster in Iraq and Persia and Khurasan. So he escaped from that disaster, and he went to Al-Haramain. So after that, he went back to his land. So this is the story of Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni, who was a great Imam. Now let us see. Okay, before we speak about Imam Muhammad Abdul Rahman Disī, it'll be good to speak about what is the disaster that I mentioned. Now, actually, Imam al-Juwayni, rahimahullah, traveled as other scholars traveled, seeking knowledge. But there were some some journeys that he went to, not because of seeking knowledge, but because he had to do that. There was a guy called Al-Kandari in the year 445 in Nishapur and all Khurasan. There was a great sultan called Tughrul Bek, a Seljuki sultan, who was a Sunni guy, a good guy. Hanafi, was a good scholar that loves scholars and respects them, and defended the Abbasid caliphates, and he used to consider himself a defender of the Abbasid caliphates. But this king had a minister that was a bad guy. This is so strange, actually. The minister is called Abu Nasr al-Kandari. He used to believe in the Mu'tazili creed. And he was Shi'i, fanatic, Mu'tazili Shi'i. So therefore, he used to curse Sahaba and say bad things about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, of course, when he's a Shi'i and he's a Mu'tazili, he used to abuse scholars, abuse Sunnis. So therefore, he decided to order the imams of Jumu'ah prayer and stuff like that to curse all the schools that are against the Mu'tazilis and the Shia. So he called them as innovators. So he said that all the masajid, after they pray, after they say the Jumu'ah speech, they would start cursing all the other groups. And then he started humiliating any scholars that are against his creed. So he had amongst him several Mu'tazila that they claim that they're Hanafis, because actually most Mu'tazila are Hanafis. And they started saying bad things about the Shafi'is and the Ash'aris, and this led to abuse all the Shafi'is and Ash'aris, of course. So most of the Ash'aris and the Shafi'is, they were cursed, they were abused. They decided to leave their land and go to the two sacred masajid in Hijaz, and some of them, So this disaster was in Khurasan, was in Sham, Hijaz, Iraq, and all the lands that are under the authority of the Abbasid dynasty, the Abbasid caliphates, and the Seljuki caliphates. So therefore, they started cursing Sunnis and after every Jumu'ah prayer, after every Jumu'ah speech. And so this is what happened to them. Okay, so that's why he decided to go to Hijaz and remain there for some time until this disaster stops. So he remained in Mecca 4 years. He used to give fatwa there, he used to teach people, and he used to benefit from that. And he went to Medina as well. And that's why they called him Imam al-Haramain, because he was Imam in these two sacred schools. He was nearly 40 years old when he was there, and he gained a lot of knowledge, and after that, he went back to his land, and this minister changed. This minister changed. So this trial helped him meet a lot of other scholars, go to the sacred land, And of course, he performed Hajj and Umrah and all these types of things. And he was with a great Imam who was two great Imams, Abu Bakr al-Bayhaqi and Abu al-Qasim al-Qushayri. He was with these two great Imams. So all of them benefit and from each other and helped each other. Imam al-Haramain came back home to Nishapur after this minister was killed, and Nizam al-Mulk came and he became the minister, the prime minister of the Seljuqi dynasty. And a new king came who was a great king of the Seljuqi dynasty, was Alp Arsalan. And this great king and minister built this schools that were called Al-Nizamiyya. The Nizami schools refer to Nizam al-Mulk. Nizam al-Mulk is the minister. His name is Hassan ibn Ali, but he was called Nizam al-Mulk. Okay? So this is the problem that happened to him, rahimahullah. Okay, forget about now his students and stuff like that. I mentioned all these. Now, who is a Disī that made this poem? Muhammad ibn Abd al-Rahman al-Disī, this is his name. He was, Muhammad ibn Abd al-Rahman al-Disī. This was a great scholar in Algeria last century. So who is Muhammad ibn Abd al-Rahman al-Disī? He was a muhaddith, mufassir, faqih, usuli, Sufi, literature, an ascetic. He was an ascetic, and he was blind. His name is Muhammad ibn Abd al-Rahman al-Disī. Al-Disī referred to a village in Algeria called Dis. He's originally from a city called Busada in Algeria, Busada, in South Algeria. He was born in the year 1270, in a village called Adis, and he passed away in the year 1339, or in the last month of it, in Dhul Hijjah, 1339. And he grew as an orphan. Since he was a child, his parents passed away, his father passed away, and he left him as a child. So his mother and his grandmother took care of him. When he was 4 years old, he started studying Quran in the memorizing Quran, and when he reached to Surah Al-Jinn, he had this chicken pox or this pox that affected his eyes, and then he lost his eyes. So sorry. And this used to happen a lot in that era. So he lost his eyes, but he kept on memorizing until he memorized the whole Quran by the scholars of his village. And after that, he started seeking knowledge from the scholars of his village, and especially one of the great scholars and ascetics of this village called Abu al-Qasim ibn Ibrahim, who has a zawiyah there. Zawiyah means a school where Sufis study and have their activities there. They have their activities there. So therefore, after that, he went to other places and he started learning from other scholars, like okay, like other scholars actually. There were other scholars. Sheikh Hamdan Lunisi, he studied with Sheikh Hamdan Lunisi of, was a very, very famous scholar in that era, and Muhammad ibn Abi al-Qasim in a place called Al-Hamil, Zawit Al-Hamil, close to Bus'ada, and then he went to Zawit Sheikh Muhammad ibn, yeah, and then when he was 24 years old, he took from a great scholar there all types of knowledge in hadith, fiqh, usul, all types of knowledge. It's Muhammad bin Abi al-Qasim, he was his main teacher, Muhammad bin Abi al-Qasim, and he met great scholars of that era like Sheikh Muhammad al-Makki bin Azzuz and Sheikh Abdul Hayy al-Kattani, and hundreds of students studied with him and became scholars after that. This Sheikh Muhammad bin Abdul Rahman al-Disī, sometimes they call him Muhammad bin Abdul Rahman al-Maghribi, because Morocco, it's west, means the west, and there wasn't these barriers that we know right now. All these lands were actually called the west, and sometimes they start Maghrib from Tripoli. Tripoli means the Western Islamic land. So Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Rahman Disī was very strong in his memory. He had a strong memory, and he used to memorize more than the Quran. He used to memorize a lot of poems, and a lot of books that used to be taught in that era. So therefore, he was very, very strong in these types of things. And he used to understand. He was very smart, so that he can understand things quickly, and therefore, he met many scholars and he benefit from them, like Muhammad ibn al-Hajj Muhammad, and al-Mukhtar ibn al-Hajj Muhammad, and al-Makki bin Azzuz, Mustafa bin Muhammad, Sheikh Abdul Hayy al-Kattani. Sheikh Abdul Hayy al-Kattani spoke a lot about him, especially in his book Fihris al-Faharis, and he met him there, and he had a strong relationship with him. And he mentioned him, subhanAllah, he mentioned him a lot. And he said that he was one of the great scholars of Algeria. He was a great Sufi. And he wrote some books about that. Okay, so yeah, this is the idea. And what do scholars say about him? They say that he was a great scholar of that land, and he was a great pious ascetic. And he wrote lots of books. Most of them are poems. And then he goes to the poems and he writes a commentary on them, like what he did to this book. He wrote a poem it was a poem, and then he wrote a commentary on it. So he has poems in all types of knowledge, like in in usul fiqh, in hadith, in tasawwuf, in all these types of things. I don't want to mention this. It's it's mentioned in the books. So therefore, after this, I would like to show you. I would like to show you his picture, so that you can. So this is Shaykh Disī. You see, this is Shaykh Muhammad Abdul Rahman al-Disī rahimahullah, and We'll leave it here, inshallah. Thank you very much for being patient with me. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us understand and benefit from these lectures. Walhamdulillah wa sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Jazakumullahu khairan.